Hello students, this video is for chapter 1 part 3 history, the rise and growth of the company power. In this video we are going to discuss about consolidation of the empire. In this we have the subtopics, the annexation of Punjab, the subsidiary alliance system, the doctrine of lapse. Next topic which we have is civil administration under the British. In this we have the subtopics, the Regulating Act of 1773, demerits of the Act, the Pitt's India Act, Charter Acts. Next we have judicial administration, army and police. So these are the topics which we are going to cover in this video. First we have consolidation of the empire. After an aggressive policy of territorial expansion, the British thought about the protection of their newly acquired provinces. As we have already discussed, till here they already had the Battle of Plassey, the Battle of Buxar, Anglo-Mysore War, Anglo-Maratha War, and they won all those battles and acquired a large province. Now it was time for the protection of their acquired provinces. Also, they were constantly threatened by the French, the Russian and the Americans. So it was now important for them to secure the northwest frontiers of the India. This resulted in two wars with Afghanistan. That was the first Afghan war, which took place in between 1839 to 42, and the second Afghan war, that was 1878 to 1880. And the result of the war was a permanent British resident was to be stationed at Kabul. The British took control of the Quran and Mishneh passes in order to prevent any foreign intervention from this side. The annexation of Sindh was important for the defense of English territories from the Russians. After signing some peace treaties with armies of Sindh and their weak resistance, Sindh was finally taken over in 1843. Burma was also annexed to the Indian Empire in 1885. The Gurkhas of Nepal offered tough resistance to the English from 1814 to 1816. But after the Treaty of Sagoli in 1816, they were also annexed. They surrendered the district of Garhwal and Kumaon to the British. So here you can see how the British acquired Sindh, Burma, Garhwal and Kumaon. Also, a large portion of Terai area came into British control. After this annexation, it was now time for the annexation of Punjab. As Punjab was now the only large and independent state left out of the British control. On that time, Punjab was ruled by Ranjit Singh. And Ranjit Singh already had a treaty with British that was perpetual friendship. Also, he maintained an efficient army and employed Europeans in his state. He was very powerful, but he died in 1839. And after his death, the political instability appeared in the Punjab. Now in 1843, Dalip Singh, who was minor son of Maharaja Ranjit Singh, was proclaimed the ruler. As he was minor, he was lacking in the experience also. The British saw it the right opportunity to forward their plan of annexation of Punjab, as Dalip Singh was the minor. After two long wars, that was the first Anglo-Sikh War, which took place in 1845 to 46, and the second Anglo-Sikh War, which took place in 1848 to 49. Punjab was finally annexed in 1849. Dalip Singh was sent to England for education and was entitled to a pension of 50,000 per annum. Now Punjab was now to be administered by a board of commissioners. Like this, till now they captured almost all the large territories, and here they introduced the subsidiary alliance system. In 1798, Lord Wellesley became the Governor General of India, and he totally focused on the expansion of British dominions. Also, he was not in favor of peace treaties or the policy of non-intervention. So, he used the system of subsidiary alliance. According to this system, the state had to surrender its external relations to the care of the company. Any form of negotiation with other states were to be made through the company. That means a state cannot go directly to other state and communicate or do any kind of negotiation. That means they totally separated the states. If a state want to deal with other state, they had to keep the company as intermediator. They cannot directly go and connect with the other state. Now the company in turn was to protect the state against any foreign invasions. The system proved to be beneficial for the British. The Indian princes were now deprived of any opportunity to join hands against the company, as company already declared that the state cannot directly deal with other state. They have to go through company. So there was no opportunity that the states can combine together and go against the company. Also, on the pretext of protecting a state, the company could now maintain a large standing army at the expense of Indian princes. Now it gave the company a chance to further expand their territories in India. Like this, they became very strong. They strengthened themselves. The Indian rulers had to face interference of the British residents in their everyday affairs. They lost their administrative as well as financial independence. The Nizam of Hyderabad, the ruler of Mysore, the Nawab of Oudh, The Peshwa and the Scindia were the chief rulers who accepted the subsidiary alliance system. So, Lord Wellesley came with the subsidiary alliance system, which was beneficial for the English. After that, Lord Dalhousie came with the doctrine of lapse. Now, according to this doctrine of lapse, if the ruler of any dependent state died without the legitimate heir to the throne, then his state would directly be annexed or lapse to the British Empire. An adopted son was entitled to use the personal property of the deceased ruler, but not his royal status. That means if a king is not having his own son and he died without having his own son, the state directly will be annexed by the British Empire. If they will adopt any son, he can only use the king's personal property, but he cannot become the king. Now, with this doctrine of lapse, the British annexed the states of Satara, Jaipur, Sambhalgarh, Bhagat, Udaipur, Jhansi, and Nagpur. Dalhousie also annexed the state of Oudh by justifying that this would free its people from misrule and misgovernance. They gave the statement that the people of Awadh are misruled. That means they are not getting the proper governance or proper rule, and British can give them the proper rule and proper governance. Like this, they annexed the state of Oudh. Now we will discuss about the civil administration under the British. Lord Clive introduced the dual system of administration in Bengal, but it did not yield the desired result from the British point of view. As we already discussed, with the dual system of administration in Bengal, a huge famine took place in Bengal and approx 1/3 of the population wiped out. Now, Warren Hastings abolished the dual system in 1772. The British territories were divided into 3 presidencies: Bombay, Bengal, and Madras. The Governor General was to be the supreme head of administration. The provinces were further divided into districts. Each district was under a collector. It was collector's duty to maintain peace, law, and order in his district and collect revenues and various taxes. He performed these functions with the help of judges, police officers, and local darogas. Next, we have the Regulating Act of 1773. This act was passed by the British Parliament, and the main objective was to regulate the functioning of East India Company. Its main features were the Governor of Bengal became the Governor General of India. A council of 4 members was constituted to assist the Governor General. All decisions were to be taken on the basis of majority of votes. A Supreme Court was established at Calcutta. It comprised a Chief Justice and 3 other judges. It was strictly laid down that no officer of the company would accept any form of bribe or gifts directly or indirectly. So these were the merits of the regulating. Now we'll discuss about the demerits of the regulating acts. The Governor General had an upper hand in all the decisions, but could not exercise control over his council. While the Supreme Court administered the English law, the other courts gave judgments in accordance with already existing laws. The Governor General could not exercise authority over other presidencies. So these were some of the demerits of the Regulating Act. Then came the Pitt's India Act. It came in 1784. By this act, the number of members in the Governor General's Council were reduced from 4 to 3. The presidencies of Bombay and Madras were made subordinate to the Governor General and his council, and a board of control was set up in London to look after the civil, military and revenue affairs of the company. Now came Charter Acts. A series of Charter Acts were introduced by the British for effective administration and stabilization. In this, the important Charter Acts were Charter Act of 1793. According to this, the Governor General was given the power to override the decisions of Council. So here you can see the Governor General was strengthened by giving the power. A Vice President was to be appointed by the Governor General in case of his absence from the Council. The members of the company were now to be paid from Indian revenue. Next came the Charter Act of 1813. According to this act, the company's monopoly of trade with India came to an end. Thus, trade in India was now open to all Englishmen. The company still enjoyed monopoly of trade with China and trade in tea. A sum of rupees 1 lakh was to be spent annually on revival of Indian literature and promotion of scientific knowledge. The next came the Charter Act of 1833. According to this, the company lost monopoly of trade with China. The act paved way for acquisition of land and property by Europeans in India. The Bombay, Bengal and Madras were placed under the complete control of Governor General. A fourth member called the Law Member was added to the Governor General's Council for legislative purposes. Next came the Charter Act of 1853. In this, the law member was made a full-fledged member of Governor General's Council. The Governor General could appoint 2 more members to his council whenever required. The council was to exercise its functions on the lines drawn by British Parliament. Now, so these were some of the Charter Acts which were passed by the British so that they can improve their civil administration. Now came the judicial administration. So in 1772, Warren Hastings introduced judicial reforms in India. Now each district was to have a Diwani Adalat. That was a civil court, and a Faujdari Adalat, which was a criminal court. The Diwani Adalat was presided over by the collector. That means the civil court was presided by the collector. Hindu and Muslim laws were to be applied for Hindu and Muslims respectively. The Fauzdari Adalat was presided over by the Indian officers of the company. They got assistance from the Qazis and Muftis. Now in 1833, a law commission was appointed. It was given the task of codification of Indian laws. Consequently, the Indian Penal Code was complied that laid the ideal of one law for all. This means that one uniform law would be applicable for both the Indian and the English in matter of jurisdiction. Next came the army. In order to have a sound system of administration, it was necessary for the British to organize an efficient army. The army was also required to keep a check on foreign invasions and internal revolts of rulers, expansion of territories, and peaceful maintenance of trading activities. Now, the army mainly consisted of Indian soldiers or sepoys. The higher ranks of the army were reserved for the British. An Indian could rise only to the rank of a subedar. After that, only Britishers can have the rank. More attention was given to the infantry regiment of the army. Soldiers were trained in the European methods of the warfare and their lives were made more disciplined. The army officers in Bengal were paid more than their counterparts in Bombay and Madras. Next was police. So the Governor General Lord Cornwallis is credited to have established a regular police force in India. From 1792, every district was divided into a number of thanas. A daroga was the head of the thana and he was assisted by the policemen in order to maintain the law. The jamindars were deprived of their task of maintaining peace in the districts and the daroga was usually an Indian. Now the daroga of various police stations were under the district superintendent who was generally a British. So daroga can be the Indian, they usually were Indian, but the district superintendent was the British. The chowkidars, that means watchmen, looked after the villages. The kotwals maintained law and order in the town. The police was mainly responsible for maintenance of internal law and order, protection from thieves, dacoits, and thugs, ensuring safety of highways. Often they resorted to violence, corruption, and bribery. It became a distress for the people and it tortured and killed people in name of maintaining peace. Lack of education, poor salaries, and an absence of privileges as compared to the British soldiers were the main factors responsible for this conduct of police. Hope you all understood all the topics taught in this video. Education is not the learning of facts, but the training of mind to think. When you think more, you get more of the questions and you get more of the answers. So thinking and finding answers are the education. Knowledge will bring you the opportunity to make a difference. So your priority should to gain knowledge. Thank you all.